We've got two races until the summer break in Hungary and in Belgium, but who is going to get the green flag, the yellow flag, and the red flag in Budapest? Let's find out. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of F1 Fantasy Pole Position. It is Wednesday, July 17th. My name is Ewan. On today's episode, we're going to go over some buy, sell, hold in F1 Fantasy, which I have kind of branded green flag, yellow flag, red flag. So stick around. If you didn't check out the race preview already, that is already up on the YouTube channel. It's already out in podcast form, so go check that out. But you won't miss anything if you like and subscribe to the YouTube channel or the podcast. We hit 500 subscribers, so thank you so much, guys, for doing that. But onwards and upwards onto bigger and better things in the second half of the season, right before summer break. Let's see if we can get that up a little bit more. So any support, feedback, comments, always appreciated. I try to respond to every comment, every tweet, where you can find me on Twitter at F1U and F1U and FPL. Yes, and I will be talking F1 Fantasy there all week as the Hungarian Grand Prix is on the horizon. But let's get into today's episode with a quick reminder that there is going to be one last piece of content coming out of F1 Fantasy Pole Position this week, and it's going to be a deadline live stream. So 1 hour before lineup lock, I will be live on YouTube answering all of your F1 Fantasy questions. Watch as I pull my hair out over the decisions of Lando and 4 C drivers versus Oscar and George, or Oscar and Lewis. We'll figure it all out after Friday's practice. So join me there Saturday afternoon, Saturday morning if you're over there in the States, Sunday morning if you're in Australia, I guess, or really late Saturday evening if you're in Australia. But yes, I will be live for 1 hour before the deadline as we go over all of our lineup decisions before lineup lock in Budapest. Green flag, yellow flag, red flag, buy, sell, hold. What are we doing here? Charles Leclerc is first on the list here, 23 million right now. It seems like one of our more lovable characters on the F1 grid has sold his soul for the Monaco Grand Prix win that he got, because since Monaco, he has not finished top 4. Canada with a DNF, Spain 5th, Austria 11th, and 14th at Silverstone. Just kind of disastrous. And then over the last 3 races, compared to his season-long line, where he scored 23.7 points per race, he's been worth 1.1 points per million, and he's gone up 3.9 million in budget. Over the last 3 races, Leclerc has fallen to 8.7 points per race, 0.5 points per million, and he's fallen 0.2 in budget. So he's actually somehow cost, while everyone seems to be shooting up in price in F1 Fantasy. Charles Leclerc has unfortunately fallen in price a little bit. It looked like he was on his way to becoming the next B-tier asset on the driver's side after Verstappen started there. Lando got there in Miami, I believe. So it looked like Charles was onwards and upwards, but he has really stalled out, as we would say, and has just kind of been hovering on this 23.0 million mark for a while now. And it sounds like Hungaroring should suit Ferrari a little bit more. It's more of a slower track. Ferrari's problems since they introduced the updates in Spain have been in the high-speed corners. But still, even if they're going back to an old spec where they had better success, like in Imola, where they were so successful in Monaco, obviously, I still think that like McLaren, Mercedes, Red Bull, they've always taken steps forward, while Ferrari is kind of going backwards just to kind of figure out, okay, that didn't work, but where can we improve? And that just seems like too much work for one team to do in the space of a couple of weekends between Silverstone and now Hungary. So I think for me, Charles Leclerc gets the red flag. If you have him in your F1 fantasy team, I would sell him this week. He's a little bit more expensive. It seems like Carlos Sainz gets more out of the car. He just kind of takes the car as it is, and he's like, okay, how best am I going to make this work for me? Whereas Leclerc keeps trying to search, kind of like how Lewis Hamilton has been struggling over the last 2.5 years. Kind of weird to say that after he just won Silverstone for the first time, or got his first race win since 2021. But Leclerc kind of falls into that Lewis Hamilton bucket where he's always trying to find that silver bullet, that magic kind of potion that's going to fix the car and get it back to the front of the grid no matter what. Whereas Carlos Sainz is like, okay, best we're going to get this weekend is fourth. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get fourth. Leclerc is kind of like Ricky Bobby, first or last kind of deal. So for me, Charles Leclerc is on the red flag going into Hungary. Next up is Oscar Piastri, 22.3 million. While Leclerc has struggled over the last three races, Piastri seems to be growing into his own. Some could argue that Piastri should be a multiple Grand Prix winner by now, this season at least, just because of his pace. But McLaren seems to kind of be failing him at inopportune times every race. So on the season, Piastri has been scoring 20.5 points per race. He's been worth 1.0 points per million, and he's gone up 3.3 in budget. But over the last three races, 26.7 points per race, 1.2 points per million, and he's gone up 0.6 in budget. He's got the fourth most points per race in the last three races. He's only trailing for Hamilton and Verstappen in that regard. Seventh least selected driver, though, at 18%. So Verstappen's at 42, Leclerc's at 30, and Norris is at 26. Those are some of the more popular drivers on the grid. So 18%, that's kind of a differential in F1 fantasy. I mean, he's below average. He's not even in the top 10 of most drivers selected. So Piastri could get you an edge over the rest of the field, over some zombie teams that might still be in front of you. If you don't know what I mean by zombie teams, go check out Adam's article on f1fantasyhq.com, and he will explain that all to you. He has had excellent articles all season, so definitely go check that out. I'll actually leave a link in the comments or in the description below where the timestamps will be, all that fun stuff. So definitely check out Adam's article over at F1fantasyhq. But yes, back to Piastri. He seems to be on the up. McLaren kind of, I'm not going to say they cost him the win in Austria just because that was such a weird race, weird circumstances with Verstappen and Norris kind of crashing out and stuff. Like maybe he could have been on for the win, but George was just there, right place, right time kind of thing. But he definitely kind of was on the bad end of the luck stick, I guess, if you would say that. Very bad saying by me. But yeah, in Silverstone, he probably should have been double stacked, and he ended up losing the race by 12 seconds, and that pit stop cost him 16 seconds. So if McLaren had just done the sensible thing, double stack like Mercedes, Oscar Piastri could be at least a one-time Grand Prix winner and possibly a multiple Grand Prix winner. So heading into Budapest, into Hungary, it feels like Piastri is on the rise, 22.3 million. So he's more likely to get a bigger budget boost than Lando. Despite Lando's driver of the day odds probably going to be through the roof, I am going to give Piastri a green flag. That's kind of where my head is at. I'm thinking about getting Piastri in and bringing in like a Lewis Hamilton or a George Russell in my team, and Oscar Piastri really facilitates that. So let me know in the comments below if you agree or disagree with my first two kind of candidates on green flag, yellow flag, red flag this week. Moving over to the third asset here, it's going to be Lance Stroll, 15.1 million on the season. He's been getting 6 points per race, 0.5 points per million, and he's gone up 4.4 in budget. However, that has been aided because he has been a C tier asset all season. So he has been able to go up and kind of get like minimum points and go up 0.5 every race, 1 million sometimes. But over the last three races, he has actually improved. So he's up to 11.3 points per race, 0.8 points per million, and he's gone up 1 million in budget. I got on him for Silverstone. I just kind of had some budget to play with. So I was like, let's take the chance. Let's see if we can get an easy budget game here. And now he's 15.1 million. So he is a B tier asset now, and he will have even fewer budget gains than most of the B tier assets because he's not going to do that well either, despite outscoring Alonso 62-41 since Imola. So that has been impressive. He's actually been driving better, at least in F1 fantasy terms, than Fernando Alonso, while Aston Martin has seemed to be struggling with the car. The update problem again that kind of showed its head after a strong start in 2023, kind of reared its head again in 2024. We'll see if they can make more gains heading into the summer break. But for me right now, Lance Stroll, as he is a B tier asset, he is a red flag. If you have him in your team, I would sell him. There's a chance that he has an awful weekend in Budapest and he drops back down below the B tier asset, or the threshold from B to C. And then we would have him in Spa, which he would maybe turn into a green flag asset. But for now in Budapest, I'm going to give Lance Stroll the red flag because there's just not a lot of point scoring. The budget kind of upside is gone from him. So I don't really see a lot of reason to hold him at 15.1 million, where there are some C tier drivers that can outscore him and for a far cheaper price and are more likely to get a budget gain. Speaking of one of those, Nico Hulkenberg here, 9.7 million on the season. He scored 6.2 points per race. He's worth 0.8 points per million, and he's gone up 3.3. But over the last 3 races, 13.3 points per million, 1.5 points or 13.3 points per race, 1.5 points per million, and he's gone up a million in budget. He leads the grid with 1.7 points per million over the last 4 races. And since Canada, he is the 6th highest scoring driver on the grid. He's outscoring Charles Leclerc. He's outscoring Sergio Perez. He's outscoring George Russell. So the Haas driver is really flying right now. The vibes are good. The only thing that's really not going so well for Hulkenberg is his 2025 team, his prospects in that Audi Sauber kind of combo. That car looks awful, and it's a shame if Nico Hulkenberg has to go into something like that, but he got his multi-year deal, going to set himself up. Good job by him. Can't blame him for jumping on that, as he's been one of those drivers that has historically had to kind of wait for other people to figure out their future before he gets to figure his out. So not going to blame him for jumping on that offer. 9.7 million. He's a great value in F1 fantasy. He's outscoring Lance Stroll, like we just talked about. He's 5.4 million cheaper than Lance Stroll. So that's a huge amount of budget. Like if you've got Mercedes and Ferrari as your combo at constructor right now, and you have Lance Stroll, drop down from Lance Stroll to Nico Hulkenberg and upgrade Ferrari to McLaren for Budapest. You will be good to go. So for that reason, Nico Hulkenberg outscoring assets above him that are priced way above him, some 3 times as much, or 2 or 3 times as much as he is priced. 13.3 points per race. That is handy dandy in our F1 fantasy squad. So Nico Hulkenberg gets the green flag from me. Final assets here: Valtteri Bottas and Zhou Guanyu. I had to put them in together because I was talking about them in my race preview, which you can check out on podcast, YouTube channel, wherever you are listening or watching the F1 fantasy content coming out of here. So Bottas and Zhou. Bottas is 7.7, Zhou is 7.5 right now. On the season, Bottas has been scoring 2.7 points per race. He's been worth 0.3 points per million, and he's gone up 1.3. Zhou Guanyu, 3.8 points per race, 0.5 points per million, and he's gone up 0.9. However, it has not been going well for the Sauber assets recently. Zhou Guanyu, he's the lowest scoring driver over the last 3 races. Yes, even below Logan Sargent. Bottas is the 2nd lowest scoring driver this season without DNFs. So if you just kind of normalize the scoring, take out DNFs, there hasn't really been a huge amount of DNFs that have been like someone's fault here or there. So I just wanted to see what that looked like. And Bottas is the 2nd lowest scoring driver there. He is ahead of Logan Sargent in that category. And Sauber, they are the only team without points in 2024 in the F1 constructor standings. And over the last 3 races, Zhou Guanyu, he's scoring 1.3 points per race. He's worth 0.2 points per million, and he's gone down 0.3, while Valtteri Bottas has scored 4.3 points per race. He's worth 0.5 points per million, and he's gone down 0.2 in budget. So I was talking about this in the previous show, like I was saying, if you've got one of Bottas, Zhou, or Logan Sargent, I would go down to Logan Sargent, save that budget. Maybe you can increase someone else in the midfield. You can go up to another Haas driver from you could maybe go from, I'm trying to think. If say you have Bottas and Zhou, you can maybe go down from Zhou to Sargent. That saves you about 2.2 million, and Bottas to Hulkenberg, because that will be 7.7 million to 9.9. So you could do that. You get out of the Sauber game completely. Sargent isn't really scoring that many points or fewer points than these Sauber assets. And the budget saving at this point is it's actually significant, almost 2 million, 2.5 million on Zhou and Bottas here, that I don't really mind just playing DNF roulette and just hoping Sargent makes it through the weekend. Maybe he can surprise us there and just kind of finish a race and be just trundle along at the back of the pack, get a 17th with some DNFs, that kind of thing. But getting Hulkenberg in over a Bottas or a Zhou is a significant upgrade. So I don't really mind going down there. However, if you don't have if that budget saving can't really get you anywhere, I don't mind holding on to Bottas. 4.3 points per race. It's not nothing. He seems to be doing a better job with the car than Zhou Guanyu is every weekend. I know Zhou just spiked into Q2. I think he outqualified Bottas for the first time this season at Silverstone. So Bottas, I would maybe hold on to if I had to, but Zhou, I think I would just downgrade to Sargent, hope to play roulette DNF or DNF roulette, and just kind of hope that Sargent trundles along. Zhou Guanyu probably going to fall again. So for that reason, I'm giving them a yellow flag, but it would be a yellow flag for Bottas and a red flag for Zhou. So I think it's kind of a mixed bag. I wouldn't buy any. I wouldn't waste any transfers on either of these assets to bring them in. If I had budget to go from Sargent to Bottas or Zhou, I would probably just hold that transfer, roll that transfer into Spa, where we might need it for a certain Dutch driver taking an engine penalty that we haven't been confirmed about yet, but we will see. So it might be handy to have that extra transfer heading into Belgium. So the Sauber guys get a yellow flag from me. It's more orangey. It's more like heading towards the red, but I would hold Bottas. I'd just sell Zhou down to Sargent if you have nothing else to do in your F1 fantasy team, but I highly doubt that. So they get a yellow flag. The Sauber guys get the yellow flag in F1 fantasy. Pole position, green flag, yellow flag, red flag for Hungary. One last reminder, deadline stream on Saturday. It's going to be 2 p.m. UK time, 3 p.m. Germany time, 9 a.m. USA Eastern. So definitely check out the YouTube channel. I will be up and at 'em. I'll be on X throughout the day answering F1 fantasy questions. You can hit me up at F1U and FPL, and I will be there the entire morning, just kind of checking out the sims, what we're going to do. And then I'll be hopping on YouTube for the last hour before deadline lock to kind of hopefully put your worries at ease and that sort of stuff there in F1's fantasy. But once again, like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We are over 500 subscribers now, so that is great news. Really appreciate all the support. It's going to be onwards and upwards to bigger and better things in the second half of the 2024 season. But once again, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Good luck in Hungary, and I will see you Saturday, and I will talk to you next time.